story begins on a road surrounded by towering buildings. A car stops, and a man, the main protagonist, steps out. He is dressed in a black designer suit. Two other men, also in black suits, stand waiting for him. This man is Lee Joo-hyuk, the Strategic Development Department Manager from DGroup. After getting out of the car, he proceeds to a building accompanied by the two men. They take an elevator to the 10th floor. When the elevator doors open, a group of men bows and welcomes him. Joo-hyuk thinks he is the action leader of a gang corporation. He walks into a room and looks out the window, reflecting on how DGroup, ranked third in the financial circle, was created with gangsters at its core, forming a hooligan corporation. He then enters another room filled with books and continues to reflect. Having lived as a gangster for 15 years as an undercover police officer, he opens another room where a whiteboard filled with plans and a computer screen is visible. Looking at the whiteboard, Joo-hyuk marvels at how Joo Kyol-soo not only created a gang but also rose to the position of a leading chairman. Joo-hyuk's responsibility is to find evidence to prosecute Joo Kyol-soo and hand it over to the police. He needs a bit more conclusive evidence to send him to prison. As he ponders this, an anonymous number sends a message to Joo-hyuk's phone. Gwangjang Corporation skilled dealers 10 minutes on standby. Let's get together and play. Joo-hyuk puts his phone in his pocket and heads to the elevator, pressing the ground floor button. He is confused, wondering whose order to go to Gwangjang in 10 minutes. When he reaches the ground floor and the elevator doors open, he sees a group of men in suits waiting for him. Seeing this, Joo-hyuk is initially confused, then suddenly becomes unconscious. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself tied to a chair, his mouth covered with duct tape. He sees a big man in front of him who says he respects Joo-hyuk for taking out more than half of them in that situation. This man, seemingly the leader, removes the tape from Joo-hyuk's mouth and acknowledges his skills, noting that they are the real deal. Joo-hyuk respectfully asks why the man is doing this. The big man says Joo-hyuk knows the answer better than anyone else, or is he asking because he doesn't know? He reveals that he knows Joo-hyuk is a police officer and is impressed by his composure despite his cover being blown. The big man, after lighting a cigarette, admits he doesn't know who ratted Joo-hyuk out, saying it was an order from higher-ups. Joo-hyuk wonders who could have stabbed him in the back. Chief Song, Director Park, Detective Yoon? The big man blows smoke in Joo-hyuk's face, expressing how much the chairman adored him. Yet Joo-hyuk dared to lie for 15 years, proving he was very good at his job. Joo-hyuk's eyes fill with anger. Seeing this, the big man mocks his angry look, crushes his cigarette on the ground, and tells Joo-hyuk to say his last words, as he's grown fond of him over the years and will at least listen. Joo-hyuk responds with a smirk, telling him to tell Joo Kyol-soo to drop dead. The big man laughs loudly, acknowledging Joo-hyuk's spirit despite being over, and leaves, saying he'll see Joo-hyuk soon. Another man approaches Joo-hyuk with a knife, expressing his disappointment as he used to respect Joo-hyuk. Suddenly, Joo-hyuk kicks the man's leg, causing him to kneel, and then strikes him in the face, making him drop the knife. Joo-hyuk grabs the knife with his tied hands, cuts his restraints, and mocks the man for being an entry-level thug who can't do a single job properly. Seeing Joo-hyuk free, the other men are confused and afraid. Joo-hyuk challenges them, loosening his tie and saying, "Bring it, all of you." The gang members rush towards Joo-hyuk with deadly weapons. He defends himself against several attacks, fighting alone and thinking he might die today. Suddenly, a man appears behind Joo-hyuk with a knife. Joo-hyuk senses the attack, dodges, and counterstrikes, but another member manages to stab Joo-hyuk in the leg. In pain, Joo-hyuk reflects on his late father, recalling how it all began with an unfortunate accident. His father saved 12 civilians who had fallen onto the metro tracks due to a druggie's actions but couldn't save himself from the oncoming train. Joo-hyuk wonders if he will go to heaven like his father if he dies. During the fight, a gang member stabs Joo-hyuk in the stomach. Blood pours from his mouth as he thinks about the filthy things he has done as an undercover officer. The gang members repeatedly stab Joo-hyuk until he loses consciousness and collapses to the ground, seemingly dead. In his last thoughts, he wonders if someone like him will be accepted in heaven. In the next scene, we see a phone ringing and falling to the ground from a table. The year on the phone is 2005. A young Joo-hyuk wakes up and thinks that this doesn't seem like heaven. He is confused. He checks his phone and sees that it is 2005. He realizes that he has come back to a day shortly after his father's death. Joo-hyuk wonders how he could have come back to this day after crossing through dozens of years. Looking upwards, he considers whether his return is thanks to his father, a righteous man who saved people at the cost of his own life. Perhaps his father helped him from the heavens, making something like this possible. He clenches his fist, stands up, and checks his bank account passbook. He finds a 200 million won entry in his account. 100 million won was the reward his father received from the government for being a righteous man, and another 100 million won was the sum he received after being discharged from service. Joo-hyuk remembers that Fortune Publishing was a shell company used to conceal affiliations and that he was part of the headquarters intelligence detachment. After 4 years of service, 100 million won was given upon discharge. Tempted by those words, he applied, deciding for his father, who had raised him alone. Suddenly, he puts the passbook on a desk and thinks that he has done everything he needs to do at home. He wonders if he should head out. Joo-hyuk steps outside and sees Songpong-gu before its redevelopment. As he walks through its familiar streets, the reality of coming back to the past hits him. Passing by some stores, he thinks that it's been a while since he saw them. After his father suddenly passed away, to deal with his sadness, Joo-hyuk spent each day in a drunken stupor. Living like a bum for over a year, he eventually realized, upon seeing his emptying bank account, that he should at least do something. Joo-hyuk looks up at the sky and thinks that he should not have become a police officer. He tells himself to forget it. It's all in the past. He assures himself to stop thinking about it when he suddenly sees a karaoke bar that is closed. He smiles, thinking that if it is 2005, it is before the bar was closed down. He never thought he would see that place again. Closing his eyes, he remembers how the bar owner treated him well when he was a part-timer there. Curious, he wonders how the bar owner is doing. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from the bar. Joo-hyuk is shocked. Inside the bar, the owner is apologizing to 3 men. The bar owner explains that they are registered as a vocal practice room, so they don't have to sell alcohol. One of the men, wearing a designer shirt, tells the owner that everyone sells it in this town. The bar owner replies that they are a different kind of business. Hearing this, the man in the designer shirt grabs the bar owner's collar, lifts him, and accuses him of looking down on them. The bar owner warns that if the man continues acting that way, he will have to call the police. The man pushes the bar owner, causing him to fall to the ground, and challenges him to call the police. At that moment, Joo-hyuk opens the door of the bar and enters. He sees the bar owner on the ground, screaming. The man in the designer shirt looks at Joo-hyuk and demands that he leave. Joo-hyuk ignores him and walks towards the bar owner, respectfully telling him to hold on for a moment as he will call 119 for him. The man in the designer shirt puts his hand on Joo-hyuk's shoulder, but Joo-hyuk suddenly grabs his hand, pulls him forward, lifts him, and throws him to the ground, knocking him out. Seeing this, the other 2 men are afraid. Joo-hyuk looks toward the men and says, "How dare you use violence?" He then punches another guy, knocking him down. After subduing all 3 men, he calls 119 and reports that there is a patient who cannot move due to a hip injury from a fall. Joo-hyuk then checks on the bar owner's condition, asking if he is all right. The bar owner, surprised to see Joo-hyuk, asks how he is there. Joo-hyuk supports the bar owner and tells him not to talk or move, to keep taking deep breaths, and to hold on a little longer as he has called an ambulance. The bar owner thanks Joo-hyuk. After some time, the ambulance arrives, and one of the rescuers asks Joo-hyuk if he has any injuries. Joo-hyuk denies any injuries, so the rescuer says they will leave the rest to him. Joo-hyuk opens another room in the bar where the 3 men are kneeling. He asks them how they will compensate for the damage. One of them apologizes. Joo-hyuk tells them that they should be thankful he didn't hand them over to the police. Even though the police know the bar owner's personality, he would have agreed to settle. Joo-hyuk demands that they pay the hospital fees and an additional 12 million won each for settlement fees and repair and emotional damage costs, totaling 24 million won each, for a total of 72 million won. He tells them this should be enough to fix the wounded heart of the owner. The 3 men are surprised and confused about how they can manage to come up with such an amount. Joo-hyuk says that if someone sees him, they might think he is a loan shark. If these 3 guys are going to hit someone, they should be prepared to pay for the damage. It's not like anyone forced them to be violent, and their financial situation is none of his business. Joo-hyuk then asks where they will get the 72 million won. Joo-hyuk stands down and suggests that if they don't have money, they should make some. He tells them about a construction site building an apartment, and he happens to know the chief there. If they work hard enough, they can earn 100,000 won per day. Working 6 days a week for a month would make them 2.4 million won. They would need to work for 10 months to earn the 24 million won needed for the settlement and compensation costs. Hearing this, the men look down. Joo-hyuk places his hand on one of their heads and says, "Don't look so down." He smiles and tells them not to do something like this again. One of the men asks if Joo-hyuk is letting them go. Joo-hyuk denies this and they all apologize to him. Joo-hyuk asks them who they are. One of them says they haven't been in the area long since they came up from Tongyeong, so they didn't know the rules around here. They all join their hands and ask Joo-hyuk to go easy on them just this once. Joo-hyuk asks if they are all from Tongyeong. The man who seems to be the leader replies that they are from the Naples of Korea, Tongyeong. Joo-hyuk then asks him about his school. The man replies that he graduated from Muljan Elementary School. Joo-hyuk murmurs about Muljan Middle School. He then looks down, places his hand on his neck, and says, "I am Lee Joo-hyuk of the 22nd class of Muljan Middle School." One of the men, a fat guy, is surprised and suddenly remembers something about the name Joo-hyuk. Shocked, he says Joo-hyuk's name loudly. Joo-hyuk, surprised, asks him if he knows him. The fat guy replied that he had known Joo-hyuk when they were freshmen, noting that Joo-hyuk had been the boss of the school. Joo-hyuk had transferred during his first year, conquered the school until his third year, and had received scout offers from gangs. As a middle schooler, Joo-hyuk had fought against the seniors from Busan High and won, nearly conquering Masan before suddenly disappearing. The fat guy then asked if Joo-hyuk wasn't that legendary. Hearing this, the three guys were surprised and began to apologize, greeting Joo-hyuk respectfully. They introduced themselves as being in the 24th class and called Joo-hyuk Hyung-nim, which means big brother. One of them was named Dong-cheol, the fat guy was Keel-san, and the big guy was Seakob. Joo-hyuk didn't expect them to be his school juniors and told them that this gave him more reason not to go easy on them, urging them to work hard starting the next day. The guys looked down and agreed with Joo-hyuk. Joo-hyuk then demanded their phones and IDs, stating he would confiscate them because they wouldn't have time to look at their phones at the construction site, and he would leave their IDs with the chief. He asked why they had come up from Tongyeong to Seoul, pointing out that there were organizations there too. Seakob replied that they had received a scout offer. Joo-hyuk was surprised and asked from where. Dong-cheol replied it was from the Gangnam faction, adding that if Joo-hyuk didn't know, the Gangnam faction worked as spies and had contacted them first, wanting to scout them. Joo-hyuk wondered if it could be the Gangnam faction he knew and questioned why Joo Kyeol-soo would call these country bumpkins. It was currently 2005, and at that time, Joo Kyeol-soo had united all the organizations south of the Han River. Seakob, noticing Joo-hyuk's expression, asked what was wrong. Joo-hyuk continued to ponder. After uniting the organization in the south of the Han River, Joo Kyeol-soo had started a war around 2006 and 2007. This meant these hooligans would be used as meat shields. To local gangsters, the Gangnam faction's love call was an uninhabitable proposition. Hundreds of guys like Seakob would come to Seoul, with half of them becoming disabled and at least 100 people losing their lives. In the end, those who rose tenaciously would only be used and discarded by the organization. Joo-hyuk put his hand on his head, wondering what he should do. One of them asked if Joo-hyuk was perhaps in another organization. Seakob told Joo-hyuk that they understood, explaining that although they were invited by the Gangnam faction, they had drastically shaken them off. Suddenly, Seakob stood up and declared that they would follow Joo-hyuk. All three bowed and asked Joo-hyuk to take good care of them. Joo-hyuk was surprised by their behavior, thinking they believed he was in another organization. He then remembered he was back in 2005 and living as a normal citizen. He had joined the police in 2008 and infiltrated the Gangnam faction. That year, the Lehman Brothers financial crisis had occurred. After that, Joo Kyeol-soo, who had united Seoul, bought a vast amount of real estate and stocks with his immense cash reserves, becoming untouchable. But Joo-hyuk was in 2005 now. He thought he could break down Joo Kyeol-soo. Joo-hyuk asked if they would be loyal to him. They all confirmed they would. Joo-hyuk then told them to start working the next day. He asked for their names but quickly decided there was no need, calling them Muscle, Pig, and Dwarf. Joo-hyuk thought he could finally deal with Joo Kyol-soo, the root of all evil, who had been uncatchable by law for 15 years. He threw a cell phone toward Seakob and instructed them to come out immediately whenever he called. The guys were surprised, bowed, and agreed to his terms. In another scene, Joo-hyuk sees the three guys at a construction site sending unnecessary messages to him. Joo-hyuk ignores their messages and sits in a chair in his room, contemplating how to catch Joo Kyol-soo. He realizes that to get Joo Kyol-soo, he must build his power, which requires money. Currently, he has 200 million won. If he takes a loan with a lease as collateral, he could get up to 300 million won, totaling 500 million won. He needs to increase this amount as much as possible. He wonders if there is anything that could help. Suddenly, he hears a news report about Dr. Hwang Won-sik's stem cell research showing positive results. Joo-hyuk realizes he forgot to turn off the TV and listens to the report, which states that if the research on using embryonic stem cells for treatment is successful, transplantation without side effects will become possible, giving hope to many people. Joo-hyuk stands up and walks toward the TV, shocked to see the news about Dr. Hwang Won-sik. He remembers that this incident marked a significant moment in the history of science, beyond just the medical field. Dr. Hwang Won-sik, who gained fame for cloning animals, published a paper claiming that embryonic stem cells could be used to create human body parts. This news generated much excitement, especially among terminally ill patients. Unfortunately, it was all a fraud. Once Dr. Hwang Won-sik's study was revealed to be fake, stem cell stocks, which had been rising daily, plummeted into the abyss along with people's hopes. Joo-hyuk recalls that the bubble burst after the fraudulent thesis was exposed, but the stocks continued to rise until then. Smiling, Joo-hyuk thinks that 500 million won is not enough, and he needs to increase his holdings. Joo-hyuk then goes somewhere wearing a black suit. He opens the door to what looks like a shop and is greeted by a man smoking inside. The man asks why a young boy like Joo-hyuk is there. Joo-hyuk asks if the man is the boss. The man inquires why Joo-hyuk is looking for the boss. Joo-hyuk swings his hand and replies that he has nothing to discuss with lackeys. The man, frustrated by Joo-hyuk's behavior, stands and tries to punch Joo-hyuk. Joo-hyuk warns him not to make him repeat himself. Later, inside a building, the man is screaming as Joo-hyuk grabs his hands from behind and restrains him. The man yells that Joo-hyuk will rip his arms off and pleads for him to stop. Joo-hyuk comments that the man might be stupid but has a pretty good body. He chokes the man from behind and threatens to break either his neck or his arm if he doesn't comply. Joo-hyuk asks again where the boss is. Suddenly, another man appeared and remarked that this was where Joo-hyuk was. The man looked like the boss, also dressed in a suit. He told Joo-hyuk not to act like that outside and invited him to come in. The boss opened another door to his office, and Joo-hyuk followed him inside. There, Joo-hyuk saw a man being punished by the boss, trembling with blood coming from his head. The boss called the man, Mr. Choi, and told him to leave because a new customer had arrived. He also warned Choi that the next time he saw him, he better have his money. Choi thanked the boss, stood up, and left the office with a wound on his face. Joo-hyuk noticed Choi but then sat on a sofa in front of the boss. He commented that the boss should manage his employees, questioning how they dared to bare their teeth at a customer. The boss raised his finger and replied, calling Joo-hyuk a young friend, suggesting that while it might seem revolting to him, he should keep his manners. Joo-hyuk asked the boss if keeping his manners would allow him to borrow more money. The boss replied that Joo-hyuk was an interesting kid and that if he kept his manners, he would let him borrow double the usual amount. Joo-hyuk, skeptical, said that the boss was joking and questioned why everyone was so eager for attention these days. He added that he needed to hear the boss speak politely, or someone would die. Then, suddenly, Joo-hyuk asked how much he could borrow if he kept his manners. The boss asked how much Joo-hyuk needed. Joo-hyuk replied, "As much as I can get." The boss estimated around 8 grand. Joo-hyuk denied and asked what the maximum amount was that the boss could give him right then. Hearing this, the boss lifted his cigarette, smiled, and said he would need collateral. Without collateral, he couldn't lend Joo-hyuk a large amount. Joo-hyuk thought that he had already used his place as collateral, so he didn't have much left, but there was still something people considered valuable as collateral. Joo-hyuk raised his finger, indicating himself, and said that his body could be collateral. He asked the boss if he had contacts with butchers, people who buy or receive bodies to cut off body parts. The boss, surprised, listened as Joo-hyuk explained that his blood type was O. He had never drunk alcohol or smoked, and there was no history of illness in his family. Joo-hyuk asked if that wouldn't be enough as collateral. The boss, astonished, asked if Joo-hyuk had been in a gang before. Joo-hyuk replied that he had been in the slums for years. The boss commented that he knew how things worked there but wondered why Joo-hyuk was still choosing to get a loan. Joo-hyuk responded that he was simply asking for money, not a drawn-out lesson. He didn't want to hear the boss's empty concerns and demanded to know how much money he could lend him. For a moment, they stared into each other's eyes. Then suddenly, the boss said that with Joo-hyuk's eyes, liver, kidneys, and everything else, it should amount to roughly $150,000. The boss asked if Joo-hyuk wanted to sign the contract right away. Joo-hyuk asked what good a contract would do if it held no power in court. He then placed his ID on the table. The boss looked at the ID, and Joo-hyuk said that if he didn't pay back the money, the boss could come find him and get all his money back with the collateral. Joo-hyuk proposed that the money he would borrow should be $300,000. The boss was surprised, and Joo-hyuk, swinging his two fingers, said he had kept his manners, so he should get double the amount, an upfront loan of $300,000 in cash. After some time, Joo-hyuk exited with several boxes of cash and placed them inside his car. He thought that now that the money was in tens of thousands, it was a hassle to move around. He had around $600,000 together. Joo-hyuk got into his car, started it, and left the place. In the next scene, Joo-hyuk was seen in a cafe, talking with a person who had blonde hair. The person, sipping tea, expressed his surprise at Joo-hyuk's youth, noting that Joo-hyuk was much younger than he had expected. Smiling, he mentioned that although he had engaged in many risky investments, it was his first time dealing with someone as young as Joo-hyuk. He then lifted a suitcase, explaining that he had brought his side of the transaction in stocks, and asked Joo-hyuk what currency he had. Joo-hyuk replied that he had his in cash. Joo-hyuk thought to himself that the first step in his plan to achieve his goal was to buy Madison Posters at a cheap price, the representative stocks in stem cell research. Madison Poster was a category of currency yet to be registered in the current stock market, and it was the quickest rising category after professors like Dr. Hwang Woo-suk announced their groundbreaking stem cell research. Joo-hyuk knew he had to stock up on Madison Posters. Smiling at the blonde-haired person, Joo-hyuk suggested they make a deal. The person confirmed that Joo-hyuk had agreed to $20 per stock. Joo-hyuk affirmed this. The person then remarked that while he was excited to sell his stock at that price, he felt a bit bad about doing this type of deal with someone so young. He asked Joo-hyuk if he knew the public price for Madison Posters. Joo-hyuk replied that he had heard it was $10. The person pointed out that Joo-hyuk was paying practically double the publicly listed price and asked if he believed the price of these posters would rise that much. Joo-hyuk thought about how stock prices could change dramatically in a short time, turning from worthless to highly valuable. He simply replied that he trusted Dr. Hwang Woo-suk and asked if they could proceed with the deal. After the deal was completed, they were seen in a parking lot where Joo-hyuk handed over the cash. They said goodbye, but as Joo-hyuk walked toward his car, the person called out to him. The person shared that he had been making a living off the stock market for around 20 years and, looking at Joo-hyuk as if he were his son, advised him not to be offended by what he was about to say. He suggested that Joo-hyuk should know there was a time to buy and a time to sell, and with just enough profit, one could overturn a few losses and make money. He cautioned that if Joo-hyuk invested with the intent to make a fortune, he might lose everything quickly. He then reassured Joo-hyuk that he was sure he would know how to do well on his own. Joo-hyuk thanked him for the advice, thinking the person was a good guy who had survived in the stock market for 20 years. Joo-hyuk then asked for his business card, which the man provided, saying that Joo-hyuk should feel free to contact him with any inquiries about investing. Joo-hyuk thanked him again, got into his car, and thought that now that he had completed the first step, he should move on to the next. Joo-hyuk called Dong-cheol and told him that he would send him the address via text, instructing him to go there when it became night. Seok-hob on the call asked where it would be, and Joo-hyuk replied that it was a nightclub. In the next scene, They were at the nightclub, surrounded by many attractive girls. The three were excited, but Joo-hyuk was upset and instructed them to take off their clothes and throw them away as soon as they got inside. He promised to give them a card to get themselves suits. They were happy and asked why it was needed. Joo-hyuk just told them to do as he said, and they all agreed. Joo-hyuk also told them not to call him sir when they were outside. Suddenly, a man with red hair appeared and introduced himself as Chan-ho Park, the server assigned to them. He asked where they would like to go. Seok-hob, angry, scolded him, asking if he had to tell him every little thing. The server apologized and offered to lead them to their rooms, but Joo-hyuk said they were fine and just wanted a table. The server agreed to get them a table. Seok-hob approached Joo-hyuk and suggested they save face, but Joo-hyuk cut him off, asking who was going to pay. Later, the server informed them that their table was ready, and they all sat down. After they were seated, the server asked if they would like some liquor. Joo-hyuk replied that they would each have a beer and 3 bottles of plain liquor, along with some basic sides. He added that they didn't need to book a room, they were only there to listen. They then turned their attention to the stage. Joo-hyuk drank some water and noticed that there were many empty seats. A nightclub in Cheongdam-dong should have been filled with people, especially during peak hours, but it was empty. Joo-hyuk thought about taking over the nightclub, planning to turn it into a regular club. Nightclubs required booking for tables and many other things, but clubs did not. Joo-hyuk grabbed a beer jug, thinking about how Joo Kyol-soo was currently acquiring funds by running illegal businesses in Gangnam. He was sure they were trying their best to recruit more thugs, as they would need a lot of money and men when their war went into full swing. Joo-hyuk looked at the three of them, who were eating too much, and thought that he would give hundreds of living meat shields food and a place to sleep. He wondered how much it would cost to maintain something like that. He imagined that if a club opened in Cheongdam-dong, all of Joo Kyol-soo's club investors in Seoul would rush to gather there, leaving Joo Kyol-soo's club empty and struggling with maintenance fees. It would be impossible for Joo Kyol-soo to stick to his plans. Suddenly, Dong-cheol asked Joo-hyuk why they came to the nightclub if they weren't going to book a room. Joo-hyuk raised a glass of drink and replied that they were going to do the holdouts that people did in real estate, buying land in a planned redevelopment area in advance and selling it at a high price to the developers. If Joo-hyuk succeeded in nightclub land speculation as he planned, the guy who lost his funding line would not be able to execute his plan. As they finished their drinks, they all stood up, and Joo-hyuk paid the bill and left the club. However, Joo-hyuk noticed that the three guys were following him. Joo-hyuk asked them why they kept following him and told them to go home. Dong-cheol asked him for a favor, requesting if Joo-hyuk could lend them 10,000 won. Joo-hyuk asked what they were going to do with that. One of them explained that they lived in a monthly rental room and couldn't afford to pay the rent, having spent almost all the money they brought. Hearing this, Joo-hyuk told them to follow him, surprising all three of them. In the next scene, Joo-hyuk was at his home with the three of them. They were amazed at how big Joo-hyuk's place was. Joo-hyuk then told them that starting today, they could live there. Initially surprised, Joo-hyuk showed them a room and told them to sleep there. Seok-hob asked if they could really live there, and Joo-hyuk told him not to make him repeat himself. Joo-hyuk also told them to eat there as well. Seok-hob, filled with joy, thanked Joo-hyuk and asked how they could repay his kindness. All three guys then knelt in front of Joo-hyuk and thanked him loudly, disturbing Joo-hyuk's neighbor, who got angry because it was night. The next day, Joo-hyuk was sitting on a chair, looking at his computer. He saw something surprising, a graph of a stem cell company showing 5 consecutive wins, indicating a bull run. Joo-hyuk thought that maybe because he used to live on alcohol, he didn't realize Dr. Hwang Woo-suk's influence was that big. He saw news about a clone dog named Snuppy and realized that all stem cell-related stocks were hitting their peak. Looking at the stock chart reminded him of the old days. He recalled that gangsters didn't hesitate to do all sorts of bad things, including something called Operation Stock. The method involved gradually acquiring shares of a certain company, ensnaring securities firms, brokers, or experts, and spreading false information to attract individual investors. When the rumors spread enough to create a bullish rise graph, they would sell everything and disappear without a trace. Naturally, from then on, the stock price would drop endlessly, and individual investors who believed the false information would bear huge losses. Many people must have taken their own lives because of this. Joo-hyuk used to live doing such things before he returned to the past. This time, under the pretext of performing a secret mission, he wouldn't create such a situation. Joo-hyuk thought about when he should sell, recalling only how many times it rose. He didn't know when to sell out. Then he saw the business card of the blonde-haired person he met in the cafe. He saw the name Cheo Hyosiop, director of HS Investment Research Institute. Joo-hyuk flipped the card and saw the name John Hyo, which surprised him. He remembered something about the past and wondered if that guy was John Hyo, the legend of the investment world. Joo-hyuk recalled that in his past life, he once calculated John Hyo's return on investment and was almost fainted from surprise. If someone steadily made a 25% profit for 35 years with 10 million won, it would become 24.65 billion. Joo-hyuk was amazed that he had traded with such an incredible person. He remembered John Hyo's advice about incremental selling, just like incremental buying. When a decent profit was made, sell and keep the profit. Joo-hyuk clicked the mouse, thinking about selling 10,000 shares, placed an order and sold them. Smiling, he decided to follow the director's advice. However, Joo-hyuk thought about whether he should start wrapping up. The total profit, including the seed amount, was 2.91 billion won. Joo-hyuk marveled at how knowing the future was amazing, but it was still not enough for him. He needed at least 10 billion to transform a nightclub into a club. Joo-hyuk realized he needed to pay back the money he borrowed from Yongwang loan. He wondered where he could borrow some money. Suddenly, he got an idea and smiled. He then went to where he had gone earlier for a loan, a place called Glory Loan. Inside the loan building, the boss's guys were beating up a debtor. The debtor pleaded, saying he wouldn't run away again and would pay back the money. They had baseball bats. Suddenly, Joo-hyuk appeared at the door and asked if they were some kind of children, telling them to turn on the light and live a bit. One of them asked Joo-hyuk how he got there. Joo-hyuk replied that he didn't have to explain how he got there every time he came. He also told them to call their boss. Frustrated, one guy said that Joo-hyuk didn't know where he was, calling the boss casually. Another one said that if Joo-hyuk came to borrow money, he should be begging. A guy with a designer shirt, who had been beaten up earlier by Joo-hyuk, tried to stop the three guys. Joo-hyuk repeated that he was saying it for the last time. Bring the boss quickly before they got hurt. The three of them approached Joo-hyuk, and one of them said they needed to educate him a bit. Suddenly, Joo-hyuk punched the first guy who talked and then delivered back-to-back punches to the others. The guy on the sofa was surprised to see all the guys knocked down. Joo-hyuk sat near him and said that even though it was already their second meeting, his hospitality was still a mess. Joo-hyuk put his hand on the guy's neck and smiled, saying he would give him a solution and to get ready for a slap. After some time, the guys with bats were on their knees sitting on the floor. Joo-hyuk continuously slapped the guy in the designer shirt. Suddenly, a boss appeared at the door, looking angry. He demanded to know what Joo-hyuk was doing there. Joo-hyuk, relieved, replied that it was a bit of a harsh tone towards someone who was there to pay him back. He then showed the boss a suitcase and asked if he should leave. Joo-hyuk stood up and asked the boss if he was not going to count the money. Frustrated, the boss told the debtor that it was enough and to just leave right now. Joo-hyuk and the boss then went to the boss's office and sat on a sofa. Joo-hyuk opened the suitcase, revealing it was filled with cash. He told the boss that he brought 33 million won in cash and even took care of the 10% interest, asking where he could find a debtor like him. Suddenly, the office door opened, and the guy in the designer shirt appeared with a glass of hot drink. Joo-hyuk told the boss to get the contract quickly. The boss, sounding angry, told Joo-hyuk to shut up as he could only let so much slide. Joo-hyuk then grabbed the cup of hot drink, brought it close to his mouth, looked at it, and suddenly threw it in the boss's face. The drink was hot, causing the boss's face to burn, and he screamed in pain. Joo-hyuk thanked the guy who brought the hot water and told the boss that he knew loan sharks so well that he could not talk to them nicely. He added that while his side was lacking before, it wasn't today. Joo-hyuk then asked the boss if he thought normal citizens could pay back 200% or 300% interest rates. He criticized the boss for harassing people at their workplaces, picking fights for no reason, thrashing them around, and robbing them of anything they called wealth. Joo-hyuk got close to the boss's face and said that while those who borrowed were not great either, the debtor was a total son of a bitch. Hearing this, the boss took out a knife from his suit and angrily cursed at Joo-hyuk, attempting to stab him. However, Joo-hyuk pushed the table between them, causing the boss to stumble, and then grabbed the knife with his hand. He swung the knife and remarked that carrying a knife and not hesitating to stab someone was not a skill one got after doing it once. The boss asked who Joo-hyuk was. Joo-hyuk placed the knife on his shoulder and replied that he was a debtor who was there to pay him back. Joo-hyuk then asked the boss where he worked, but the boss replied, asking why he would tell him that. In response, Joo-hyuk grabbed the boss's hand, placed it on the table, and stabbed the knife into the table between the boss's fingers. The boss, terrified, screamed. Joo-hyuk noticed a board on the wall and thought about how, 5 to 6 years ago, a group merged with the Gangnam Gang. If a group was taken over by another head, the group itself naturally ceased to exist. In that case, these thugs were forced to choose one of two options: continue working as a thug for the new group or leave the group with reasonable severance pay. Joo-hyuk concluded that the boss was one of the latter. Joo-hyuk then asked the boss why he left his life as a gangster and if he didn't want to work under Kyeolsu. The boss, shocked, asked if Joo-hyuk was with the police. Joo-hyuk denied it and asked why the boss left the group. Hearing Kyeolsu's name, the boss's face turned to fear, and he said that Kyeolsu was a scary man. Joo-hyuk asked if he didn't want to slowly end that life now. Joo-hyuk then suggested to the boss that he could put an end to the filthy way he was playing with debtors and make a lot of quick money one last time to settle down. The boss replied, asking what he meant. Joo-hyuk placed his hand on the table and asked how much money the boss had right now. The boss replied that including what he had lent as a loan shark, it was about 6.5 billion won. Joo-hyuk then said to take all that money and invest it where he was investing. He promised to give the boss 30% of the profits. The boss asked how much that would be. Joo-hyuk explained that he could use 50% of his investment. If he invested 6.5 billion won, his profit would be 3.25 billion won, and 30% of that was at least 1 billion won. Joo-hyuk suggested that the boss take that money and, along with what he already had, retire. The boss smiled and asked if Joo-hyuk was really telling him to retire with just that amount. Joo-hyuk replied that if the boss didn't want to, that was fine, but he questioned whether the boss had Kyeolsu's permission for his current money-lending business. He reminded the boss that the Gangnam Gang had control over the Gangnam and Seocho districts and that Songpa was an ambiguous location. Joo-hyuk then asked the boss if he thought Kyeolsu would be okay with that. He warned the boss that if Kyeolsu found out, he would claim Songpa as his territory and demand to know how the boss dared to do business without informing him. The boss told Joo-hyuk not to do it. Joo-hyuk replied that he would see what the boss did first, but in return, the boss had to invest. The boss took some time to think about it and then agreed, saying that within 1 week, he would prepare the 6.5 billion won in cash. After completing the deal, Joo-hyuk turned back to leave the office, but when he reached the door, the boss asked if he thought he would be safe after that. Joo-hyuk replied that he believed he would be. The boss reminded him not to forget his background and warned that he would have to watch his back his whole life. Joo-hyuk responded that the boss could do whatever he wanted, but if he tried anything, he had to make sure he succeeded because if he didn't, Joo-hyuk would kill him. He then closed the door and left the office. After some time, Joo-hyuk left, and the boss rested on the sofa, placing ice bags on his knees. The guy who was close to the boss and looked like a manager came in and asked if they should round up their guys from the southwestern faction. The boss replied not to mess with Joo-hyuk. The manager was surprised and asked if the boss would just let that slide, saying Joo-hyuk was a total thug. The boss replied, saying, "Are we not gangsters too?" He then sat up and told the manager that Joo-hyuk was a veteran. Grabbing a cigarette box, the boss said that Joo-hyuk had lived a rough life. He didn't know where Joo-hyuk was from, but he was definitely a veteran. It was not his first time stabbing someone. If they messed with him, they could end up leaving this world without anyone finding out about it. The boss lit a cigarette and said they should just invest, hoping to make at least 1 billion won, and prayed they could get more. The boss then asked the manager if Joo-hyuk had said his hometown was Cheongju. The manager confirmed this. The boss then said they should go there once everything was settled. He mentioned he was from Ulleungdo Island but didn't want to go back there. In the next scene, we see Joo-hyuk driving his car, thinking about his assets. He's worried that he doesn't have enough money. Suddenly, he gets an idea and pulls out John Hyo's business card from his pocket. He then calls John and makes an appointment. Joo-hyuk goes to John's office and thanks him for helping him make a lot of profit. John grabs some coffee for Joo-hyuk and tells him that he succeeded because he was a young person with guts who took on a challenge. John smiles and says that catching the leader in the middle of a stem cell craze made it obvious that Joo-hyuk would earn a huge profit. Joo-hyuk explains that he contacted John because he needed to ask a question about stocks. John tells him to ask anything. Joo-hyuk asks about the probability of Madison poster falling. John takes a moment to think and then says the probability of it falling is 99%. Joo-hyuk asks why he thinks that way. John replies that a company with no results to show has risen way too high. Just because of the stem cell keyword, its stock skyrocketed to almost 10 times its original value, so of course it's going to drop. John takes a sip of his coffee and notes that they've already seen results with clone dogs, so there's not much growth to speak of. Hearing this, Joo-hyuk thinks John is truly worthy of being called a legend in the investment world. John guesses that Joo-hyuk is thinking about loan transactions. If a stock falls, he can choose the route of making a profit from loan transactions, also known as short selling. John says the fall of Madison poster is anticipated, meaning the profit from loan transactions is 100% certain. Joo-hyuk confidently states that he believes Madison poster will definitely fall. To make more profit on his investment, he got in touch with John. Joo-hyuk tells John that he would like to borrow for his investment. John thinks for a moment and says that 10 billion won is possible for him. Joo-hyuk says he needs more and offers John half of the profit, asserting that Madison poster will definitely fall, and he doesn't want to miss that chance. John takes his time to consider and then raises a finger, saying that the stock market always has a 1% variable that can never be ascertained. Because of that, they don't know what will happen with Madison poster stock. John asks Joo-hyuk what he will do if he faces a loss. Joo-hyuk replies that he has 9.5 billion in funds. If that variable causes the loss to exceed 9.5 billion, he will dispose of all those stocks and repay all the money he borrowed from John. Seeing a different aura in Joo-hyuk's face, John stands up, shakes hands with Joo-hyuk, and makes a deal to lend him 2 billion won. In the next scene, Joo-hyuk is in his room, sitting at his computer table. He thinks about the total of 25.9 billion won he has invested in loan transactions. He is confident that Madison poster will break through the lower floor. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Joo-hyuk stands up and opens it to find the 3 guys he helped before. He asks them about dinner but is shocked to see their faces badly injured, as if someone beat them up. Joo-hyuk asks what happened. Seokob replies that guys from the services came to stop the construction. Joo-hyuk asks why they would stop a building construction that was going fine. They say they are not sure, but the men came with iron rods and caused a mess to stop the work, so they couldn't endure it and aggressively confronted them. Joo-hyuk wonders if it was Joo Kyol-soo. He thinks now is not the time for him to proactively jump into the construction industry. Right now, he is focused on the adult entertainment industry. He asks if there are any other people also breaking in. Joo-hyuk asks Seokob if the chief was hurt. Seokob replies that he took a few hits too. Joo-hyuk, confused, asks exactly who did it. Dong-cheol replies that he saw clearly it said Moonchong construction material on the back. Joo-hyuk stands up and tells them they worked hard and should take a shower before sleeping. The 3 of them are confused. Joo-hyuk then starts his computer and thinks about the early stages of construction, where all sorts of corruption occur as gangsters exploit profits. If they start building without corruption, they use different methods. One such method is through construction materials. Thugs force and threaten building owners to purchase construction materials from them. But the materials they provide are all grade B or worse. When the landowner rejects the purchase, the thugs go on a rampage and stop the construction. Due to the nature of construction work, which suffers losses the longer it is delayed, the building owner is eventually forced to use low-quality materials with tears in his eyes. Joo-hyuk finds the address for Moonchong construction material. The next day, we see the Moonchong construction material building. A black car arrives in front of the building, and someone opens the car door and steps out. It is 5:11 in the early morning. Joo-hyuk, wearing a black jacket and black cap, is ready to confront those guys. Joo-hyuk opens the door and looks around. The workers at the company say that the place is not open for public entry. One guy walks toward him and asks what he's looking around for, using some rude words. Joo-hyuk replies, asking what sort of company this is if they don't even display any construction materials. The guy who approached him asks who he is. Joo-hyuk grabs his fist and asks if it's just 7 of them or if more will come. The guy asks which gang Joo-hyuk works for. Joo-hyuk says no one and punches him in the face. The guy falls to the ground. Seeing this, the other guys are surprised and wonder who Joo-hyuk is. Joo-hyuk asks them if their boss isn't yet or if he hasn't arrived. He then grabs a chair nearby and places it by the door, blocking it. He says they don't need to know who he is. They just need to know that now is the time for them to take a beating. One guy runs toward him with a hammer, followed by the others. The hammer guy tries to strike Joo-hyuk, but Joo-hyuk dodges and kicks him in the stomach, then punches him in the face. He faces all the guys single-handedly. After knocking them all out, Joo-hyuk kneels near the guy with the hammer, who is sitting on the ground. Joo-hyuk asks him if it hurts, telling him he shouldn't mess with innocent civilians. Joo-hyuk heard they hit the chief. The guy asks what kind of person Joo-hyuk is. Joo-hyuk asks if he is the boss there or not. The guy doesn't reply, so Joo-hyuk says it doesn't matter as long as he can use him to set an example. Joo-hyuk grabs his hand, puts a pen between his middle finger and another finger, and tells him that breaking his middle finger can hurt in several spots. He then asks again when his boss is coming. The guy looks up at Joo-hyuk, who suddenly puts his leg on the guy's hand, twisting his middle finger and causing him to scream in pain. The other knocked out guys see this and are terrified. Joo-hyuk asks once more when his boss is coming. Suddenly, someone speaks loudly at the door, asking if anyone has come to work. The boss arrives outside the door and tells another worker to take the key and open it. The worker mentions hearing something from inside. The boss replies, "What to hear?" Suddenly, Joo-hyuk opens the door and says to the boss that he is quite late and should come inside. The boss wonders who Joo-hyuk is and sees the other workers knocked out. Joo-hyuk says he's the Reaper who is there to slash his throat. Sometime later, we see the boss's face covered with wounds and injuries. He tries to speak but can't due to his injuries. Joo-hyuk inflicted all the injuries by beating him and the others. Joo-hyuk says the boss just took a few hits to the face, so what happened to his pronunciation? Joo-hyuk accuses the boss of pushing the construction materials to gain profit, telling them to use iron rods and blackmailing them into using subpar concrete from a company that bribed him. Joo-hyuk then punches him again and again, mentioning that the Seongsu Bridge and Sampong Mall also collapsed. He asks if the boss didn't learn anything after seeing that. People close to him were hurt and couldn't gather their senses because of the pain. Joo-hyuk says the chief had to get psychotherapy because the boss beat up his kids so badly that it affected his mental stability. But in reality, they don't go to psychotherapy. Joo-hyuk just wants the boss to realize his mistakes. He then smiles and says that the owner mentioned that the loss from the construction delay is no joke, and the compensation for damages will be accordingly. Joo-hyuk demands around 600 million in compensation, turns his back, and starts to leave, saying the boss should prepare the cash by tomorrow morning. The boss says that Joo-hyuk's demand is harsh. Joo-hyuk looks back and replies that calling in thugs, threatening unwilling landlords, and forcing them to use inferior materials is harsh. Joo-hyuk warns that if the boss brings a bond or any evidence, he will burn it. Joo-hyuk then says that if he doesn't get the cash by tomorrow, it will be doubled. He then closes the door and leaves. In the next scene, we see Joo-hyuk on his laptop, looking at a chart of Madison stock. He notices that it has fallen to 1 million, and the average price of stocks borrowed through loan transactions is 1 million, so now it is in the profit zone. Behind Joo-hyuk, his 3 friends also see the chart. One of them says he doesn't understand it. Seokob asks Joo-hyuk if he makes money when the price falls since he thinks stocks make money when their price goes up. Joo-hyuk replies that there's no need to complicate it. To give an example, he asks Seokob for 10,000 won. Seokob gives Joo-hyuk 10,000 won, and Joo-hyuk says he borrowed 10,000 from him and paid back only 5,000 won. He gives 5,000 won back to Seokob and asks him what will happen. Seokob thinks and says that 5,000 was stolen from his pocket. Hearing that, Joo-hyuk puts his hand on his head. Suddenly, Dongcheol answers that it means Joo-hyuk borrowed stocks at 10,000 won and returned them at 5,000 won. The difference of 5,000 won stays with him as profit. Hearing that, Joo-hyuk becomes happy and says Dongcheol is correct. Dongcheol says he may look like that, but he was a good student in middle school. If it weren't for his dad's credit card debt, he would have even gone to college in Seoul. Joo-hyuk thinks that Dong-cheol was a victim of the credit card crisis and needs to get this guy to study. Joo-hyuk asks Dong-cheol if he graduated from high school. Dong-cheol says yes. Joo-hyuk tells him to stop going to the construction site from now on. He will speak with the captain and see if he can get him assigned to the General Affairs and Accounting Department to learn the work from there. Learning the numbers would be better for Dong-cheol. Seeing this, the other two are happy for Dong-cheol because now he won't need to go to the construction site. Joo-hyuk thinks that if Dong-cheol goes from construction to office work, there will always be people jealous of him, but for these best friends, they are all one. Suddenly, Joo-hyuk stands up and tells them not to drink at dinner today and to sleep early because they have somewhere to go tomorrow. They ask Joo-hyuk where. Joo-hyuk replies, Moonchong Construction Material. In the next scene, we see Joo-hyuk and his friends in a car waiting in front of Moonchong Construction's main building. Joo-hyuk asks Dong-cheol how many people went in. Dong-cheol replied that 33 people went up to the office on the second floor. Joo-hyuk comments that it's a lot, then asks the other two if they're up for it. Joo-hyuk has nicknames for his friends. Dong-cheol is a little guy, Chonsun is fatty, and Seakob is big guy. Joo-hyuk then tells Dong-cheol that he worked hard staying up all night and should return to his room to relax. But Dong-cheol denies it, pulls out a rod, and grabs it tightly, saying that he needs to get revenge. Seeing this, Joo-hyuk smiles. All four of them are ready to attack Moonchong Construction Material, armed with weapons. They all sit behind their car, looking toward the main building's second-floor window. The fatty guy holds a Molotov cocktail. Joo-hyuk tells him to light it up and throw it. The fatty guy replies, yes. Inside the building on the second floor, a large number of thugs in black suits are gathered. They all talk about who called them there. One of them takes out a cigarette and tries to light it, but another guy stops him, saying the place isn't ventilated. Despite this, the first guy lights the cigarette. Suddenly, the Molotov cocktail flies through the window near him and spreads fire on the floor. Panic ensues as all the thugs run toward the stairs. The big guy, Seakob, intercepts them and starts hitting them with a bat. The main boss watches the chaos, then turns and jumps out of a second-floor window, landing on Joo-hyuk's van. Unfortunately for him, Joo-hyuk is there. Joo-hyuk grabs his hair and calls him Mr. Park, reminding him that he was supposed to have the money ready, but it looks like he brought some friends instead. Park tries to explain, but Joo-hyuk cuts him off, saying that ignoring his goodwill was a mistake, and asks how much the settlement money should be. After some time, the three guys beat all the thugs on the second floor and put out the fire. Park kneels in front of Joo-hyuk, pleading with him not to do this. Joo-hyuk tells him to have 600 million won ready, and he'll let him go. Park asks if he's serious and questions why he owes him 600 million. Joo-hyuk acknowledges it might be too much but points out that bringing those thugs there was not good. If he had gone in without knowing, he could have died. Joo-hyuk tells him he could face charges for gang assault and attempted murder. Does he want to take that to court? Joo-hyuk then leans closer and says that unlike Park, he doesn't have assault charges. Who does Park think the judge will believe? Joo-hyuk puts his hand on a table and points to a locker under it. He tells Park to open it. Park opens the locker, revealing a large amount of cash and gold bars. Joo-hyuk then told the little guy that Park had all kinds of valuables, from gold to hard cash. He advised the little guy to keep his money safe by diversifying, not just keeping it in cash or gold. He explained that when the Korean won became unstable, it was better to use US dollars and Japanese yen, and if the entire world's economy turned red, gold would be a better option. The little guy responded that he would learn it in a week. Seeing his attitude, Joo-hyuk appreciated it. Joo-hyuk then instructed them to take 120 million in cash and all of the gold. The three of them grabbed gold bars and bundles of cash from the locker and put them into bags. They noticed that Park had foreign currency as well. Park suddenly spoke to Joo-hyuk, asking where he had come from and who was allowing him to pull stunts like this. Joo-hyuk humorously replied that he was from Korea on planet Earth and that he was an ape. The story continues from where we left it off when Park was asking where did Jayak come from, to which Jayak then replies sarcastically that he's from the land of Korea, which is a place from the planet known as Earth. He further went on to call Park an ape. After that, a frustrated Park says that Jayak is an SOB, and Jayak claps back at him by saying that if he is an ape, then what would Park be? Jayak then asked Park if he has anyone backing him up. Jayak says that every gang around the area are long gone, so he can't use that excuse against him. We get to know that every person with a decent reputation went under Ju Kyolse's regime. That is why these nobodies are trying to grab attention from Kyolse's name, and that this guy is one of them. We then see the 3 friends of Jayak who report to him that they have got all the thugs. Jayak responds to this by telling his friends that they did well. He then tells the trio that they should take their leave. As he says this, we see Park looking at him, and Jayak puts his hands on Park's shoulders. After that, Jayak tells him that he wants to stop playing this game of who is backing up whom, and says that he hopes that he never meets Park again. Jayak further adds to this by saying that he has left some cash for Park to leave this place, and he also warns Park that if he sees him again, Park will end up in the bottom of the Han River. Then the scene changes and we get to see that Jayak is looking at his computer screen and analyzing the stock market. He then sees that his stock prices are drastically going down. Jayak thinks that the stock prices are going through ups and downs in a fraction of a few seconds, and that it feels like a roller coaster ride to him. Jayak then realizes that the problem with short selling is that there is always the possibility of prices traveling up and down, and if the Madison posters were to ever return to what they once were, then he'll be screwed. Jayak recalls him saying to Mr. John that if something happens and the losses go past the 950 million mark, then he'll get rid of all these stocks and will give all the money back to Mr. John Heo. Jayak then thinks that even now, there must be more money going straight to Ju Kyolse's account, and with that money, he'll get ready for war against the Gangbuk region. Jayak then thinks that he shouldn't be sitting on his butt like this. After that, we can see that Jayak is doing something on his computer, and he suddenly notices that he had found something, and he was very excited by it. The scene then changes, where we see Jayak took his hoodie and left his house to go to a phone booth to make a call. There, he was talking to Shin Chong-suk, who is a reporter from Notes. Jayak tells Chong-suk that he has something that he wants to share, to which the reporter then says that Jayak should continue. Jayak then goes on to talk about the NBC News program called Notes, and how the academic report Hwang Woon-suk professor presented on there was all fake. He further said that the embryonic cell doesn't even exist to begin with. Jayak adds that this all started with Pnotes questioning the moral issue of the topic. He continues and says that as it develops into a bigger problem, the truth will be coming to the forefront, and that things are going to be coming to light about the discrepancies in that report. However, Jayak said that he can't wait for that long. He then asks the reporter to try going to the Milady Maternity Hospital. There he will find everything he needs. After saying that, we see Jayak disconnected the phone call and started walking while he said to himself that the news and internet will take care of the rest. Jayak then wonders when this would show up at the Pnotes programming. In the next scene, we see that Jayak is watching TV, and it says on the news channel that on next week's Pnotes, they'll reveal the truth behind Professor Hwang Woon-suk. This delights Jayak, as he thought that the news media is a way faster than what he had given them credit for. Just at that moment, Jayak's friends arrived. Afterward, we see Jayak is looking at his computer monitor, judging the stocks. Jayak then sees that the stocks, which were at 100K, have now come down to a measly 20K. Jayak then wonders that the market price of the nightclub is at 200 million, and he is looking forward to it inflating it to about 305 million. But then again, he thinks that 30% of profits will go to the loan which he had taken from the loan sharks, and also he had promised John Heo manager 50% of the money. The thing that bothers him is that he's not sure if he'll be able to buy the nightclub and pay for the renovation with the remaining money. Then we see Jayak is sitting on his chair, leaning backwards and thinking about this matter, as he is in a lot of stress. Just then, suddenly, someone knocks at his door. He got up from his chair and opened the door. It was a middle-aged man. Jayak tried to recognize him and thought about who it might be. The man then introduces himself by saying that he is the owner of Jeongan Properties. Jayak then remembers that Jeongan Properties is where his friends worked before. Jayak then asks the man to come inside, and he then says to the man that at this time all he got is a cheap coffee mix, so the most he can offer him is coffee. The man responded by saying that he doesn't mind, and he took the coffee from Jayak and thanked him for it. Jayak then looks at the guy and notices that he's wearing a high-quality suit with a matching antique watch. The stuff he has on him must be worth at least a few millions, but Jayak feels that this man is quite humble for someone so rich. The man then said he heard some stories from the chief, who thanked him very much, this time with Munchong construction materials. Only then does Jayak realize that the man was talking about the time when he taught a good lesson to Park Munchong. The focus then shifts to Jayak, and he smiled and said to the man that it was nothing, saying that he only gave him a little warning. Then we see the man say that those punks from Munchong construction used to screw with them every day. The man then gives Jayak an envelope and says that it isn't much and asks Jayak to accept that envelope. Jayak thanked him and asked what it was, before he opened the envelope, and found out that the envelope had a bearer bond, which ended up shocking Jayak. Bearer bonds are a fixed source of income, which provides anonymity and privacy to bondholders. Jayak finds this bearer bond pretty amusing because back when Jayak was out, the bearer bonds were out of market. As Jayak takes a look at those bonds closely, he sees that 50 million notes were in there. Jayak was shocked beyond comprehension. The guy then told Jayak that it's to show their gratitude towards Jayak after what he has done for his company. After making a small calculation, Jayak came to the conclusion that it's 1 billion won worth of bonds there. Jayak was flabbergasted by that guy's generosity. Jayak started wondering if all of this is for real. Jayak then asks the man that those people must have caused a lot of problems to him, and the guy responded by saying that Jayak hadn't heard half of it. The proprietor of Gyeonggan Properties told Jayak about how they pour their materials in one way or another when the Gyeonggan company starts building something. The owner of Gyeonggan Properties clarifies that they tried to oppose them, however, it was no use trying that. He told Jayak about how they brought in a mixture truck last time to pour their concrete and demanded money since they did their work and poured in their stuff. He then goes on to say that he set a new trend in the industry by rejecting Park Munchong and his outlandish demands. He continues, saying that when he showed the guts to reject Munchong, they started threatening him with his wife and daughter's photo. That was the last card they used, and it was indeed their trump card. The owner of Gyeonggan Company wanted to take their lives, but he couldn't do anything, as they had Jayak looked into his eyes. The pain he saw, he can certainly empathize with him. After describing the mental pressure that he has been through all these time, the man grabs both of Jayak's hands and expressed his gratitude towards Jayak by saying thanks over and over again. The story then goes to a mini flashback where we see that the Jayak is thinking of the times when people are begging and repeating the word sorry and please so many times. Then we get to learn that all his life Jayak heard these words sorry, please, where people are begging for mercy and another chance from him. That's why Jayak considers his life disgraceful. Jayak never even heard the word thank you in his life, so he thinks that the word police was wasted on him. Back in the present time, the owner of Gyeonggan Company requests Jayak to accept the envelope which has the bearer bonds, to show his gratitude in some way, because he considers Jayak's savior, who in a way cured the cancer from his life. But in Jayak's opinion, he did what had to be done. Jayak is more than happy to see what satisfaction and joy that brought to the lives of others. The owner of Gyeonggan Company then gave Jayak another proposal. He said that he is currently working on a building and, after its completion, he will leave the first floor for Jayak where he can start a business. He also assures Jayak that if he needs any materials, he will deliver it to Jayak. Jayak then thought that it's going too far. But suddenly Jayak realized that he can use this opportunity. Jayak then told the guy that there is a club business that he is starting, and he is planning to buy a nightclub in Gangnam and renovate it into a club, which will have the vibes of Hongdae. Jayak further goes on to say that he is lacking an investment money to start the club, so he is planning to go to the bank. We then see that by the time Jayak is finished with his sentence, the owner of Gyeonggan Company asked him not to go to the bank because he will pay for it. Jayak then realizes that what goes around comes around, and he was mesmerized with the guy's attitude. Then the scene changes and we see Jayak putting on his t-shirt. He then looks at the computer monitor and saw that the stocks are bungee jumping. But he realized that he doesn't need to worry about the stocks anymore, because Jayak has sold all his holdings. The return rate is 92%, it's a total of 58.56 billion, and we learn that Jayak is probably the first person to make a hell lot of money off balance thread. Jayak then calculates John Hyo's money and 50% of profits equals to about 9.2 billion. Then he has to pay the chief of Youngkwang loans 30% of the profits. Then we get to learn that he does not want to pay the money to the Youngkwang loans, but it's just that Jayak doesn't want to break his promise. We then get to know that minus everything, Jayak will have roughly 17 billion, with which Jayak can't even buy the nightclub as he had wanted to. But now he doesn't have to worry about that anymore, and it's all because of the owner of Jeongan Company. So we get to learn that because of Mr. Joe Jeongan from the Jeongan properties, everything is solved for the time being. That's why we see that Jayak is now ready to pay his loans. Afterward, we see Jayak kicking the door of the loan lender's office, and then tells them to take their money back. Then the boss asks his sidekick, Kim, to check the money. After that, we see that Kim Kuin is checking the money properly. Jayak then humorously said that Kim Kuin is literally checking every single note. Kim Kuin then assured his boss that the money is all okay, including the original loan. The entire 8.2 billion won has been paid back. And after the loan repaying session is over, we see that Jayak says to the Yongkwang chief that they are cutting ties after this, to which Yongkwang chief responded by saying that he is fine with that. Then we get to know that Jayak is waiting for someone, and he says to himself that the person he's waiting for will be there soon. Within a moment, we see that one of Jayak's friends enters the room and says he has brought the man. Jayak responds to that by asking him to sit down on his knees. Then it is revealed that the guy is Park Munchong. Jayak then says to Yongkwang that he will now show him that what happens to the people who breaks promises. Jayak then suddenly throws a left hook to the jaw of Park Munchong, which sends him flying back. Everyone in the room present was stunned and scared. Afterward, Jayak picked Park Munchong by his collar and threw a barrage of left-right combos to the temple. Park Munching's whole face was busted open, and there was blood everywhere on his face. We then get to learn that Jayak asks his friends to keep an eye on Park Munchong. Jayak also told Park Munchong to leave the city, and Jayak's guess was also that Park Munchong will leave the city. But Jayak learned from his friends, whom he sent after Munchong, Park was looking for an office in Bundang. He wanted to start a new construction company again. After that, Park Munchong suddenly said to Jayak that Jayak was no one to tell him what to do. Park Munchong also asks Jayak that why does he care so much, and cursed him at the same time. Afterward, we see a smile on the face of Jayak. Jayak said to Park Munchong that he can really take hits. Then we see a mysterious smile on Jayak's face. Afterward, Jayak continuously keeps punching and pushing Park. While everyone else in the room kept on looking at this brutal scenario, they were really scared. But Jayak was not stopping at all. Then we see Park asking for mercy. His whole face is bruised up. Jayak then tells Park to go fish on a boat like this, because, according to Jayak, that is the perfect way for Park to self-reflect. Park Munchong then asks Jayak what is the reason for all this punishment. Why is he doing this to him? Jayak responded to that question by asking him that it seems to him that Park didn't know why he's doing this to him. Jayak then said that there is a saying that even thugs don't mess with anyone's family. Then Jayak goes on to ask Park if he understood what Jayak meant by that. We then see Park trying his best to justify himself, but Jayak throws a thunderous right hook to Park's chin, which sends him to the floor and gets his all bloodied up. Afterward, we see Park admitted that he was wrong and apologized. He also promised to quit. Park was asking for mercy, and he requested Jayak to believe him this time, and he was asking for a last chance. But Jayak responded by saying that he doesn't believe him at all. Jayak then asks his guys to apply some medicine onto him, then send him to the sea for fishing. Then he also orders his guys to take all Park Munching's remaining $1. After that, Jayak's guys take Park Munchong away from the room. Jayak then says that they finally got rid of one more dirty trash from the society. Jayak then looks at Yongkwang and asks him if he thinks that's very rewarding, and further goes on to say that Yongkwang didn't do anything about this. Jayak just gives them an intense stare and thinks that it should be enough for them to understand that as long as their head isn't an accessory, he won't do anything too rash. After that, we see Yongkwang realizes the whole situation. He looks at Kim Kuin, then very timidly stares that he decided earlier that after he received the money from Jayak that he will also quit this business. Yongkwang further goes on to say that he was wrapping everything up and just waiting for the money. After that, he was about to go to his hometown, Cheongju. Kim Kuin also agreed with him and said that Cheongju is their hometown, so they decided to go there and open a bar. We then see Jayak smiling, and then he said that he didn't say anything to them. Then why are they creating a fuss out of it? Then Jayak further adds that they themselves said that they're quitting, and it wasn't something he forced upon them, so Jayak wishes that they should take care of themselves and do well and walks away from the scene. But Jayak suddenly stopped, turns around and says that they should also live kindly, and tells them that they shouldn't do anything that they regret later. In which they replied that they'll be careful. Afterward, we see Jayak leaving the place and thinking that that's why it's always easier for him to deal with bad guys. The scene changes and we see Jayak at John Hyo's place. Jayak is there to pay his money back. Sometime later, Jayak then thanked Manager Hyo. Jayak then lets Manager Hyo know it's that because of him, they are able to obtain a huge amount of profit. Manager Hyo is shocked from hearing that. Manager Hyo then responds to that by saying Jayak is a one-of-a-kind person in surprising people. He further goes on to add that it's his first time dealing with some like Jayak, and also expressed how mesmerized he is with Jayak. Jayak then jokingly said that should say that he can look into the future. Manager Hyo also humorously responds to that by saying that is what he thinks. Then Jayak tells Manager John Hyo that it is because of his advice that they've earned this much profit. And Jayak also adds that he will be always grateful to Manager Hyo, and Jayak said that he would love to meet him again next time. Manager John Hyo also agrees with Jayak and also added that they should invest together next time if any opportunity arises. Manager Hyo then also says that it was his honor to collaborate with Jayak. We then get to learn that Jayak also feels the same way. They then shook each other's hand, then he left. Then we see Jayak at his home and telling his pals that now they have gathered some investment funds, so they should now focus on the nightclub, and we see that Jayak brought a lot of food for his friends. They then thanked Jayak and said that they are thankful to their hyung him Jayak. Then all four of them ate like crazy. They didn't even leave any room in their stomach. After eating pig, then said that it feels to him that his stomach is going to bust out. Then another one said that he feels like that alcohol is flowing from his veins. After all this, Jayak says that now that everyone is full, he wants to talk about some business with them. Jayak then addressed Pig that he should take care of the restaurant's interior, because he knows a bit about interior designing. We then see that Pig was very excited hearing that, and he adds that he has designed his own house. He also added that he learned a few things here and there from his father when he was young. Then Jayak seemed impressed by that, and he said that Pig will take care of the interior department from now on. Jayak then asks him to look around the Hyundai so that he could learn about the internal structure of the clubs, so that he can luxuriously decorate their restaurant. Page then said that he didn't know about anything else, but he's pretty sure about interior design. We then see that Jayak appreciated his confidence. Then Jayak says that the most important thing, according to him, is bringing in the club's DJs. And this time Dwarf suggested that he should look after it. He further goes on to say that in any city of Korea, DJs only want a suitable pay, and if they pay them suitable, then they will take care of everything on their own. After hearing what Dwarf has suggested, Jayak decided that Dwarf will recruit the DJs. Dwarf was pretty happy with that decision. Then we see another one of Jayak group member asks that what duty would be his. Jayak looked at him and said that he will follow Jayak from now on. Then Jayak asks him to carry a memo pad with him always and write everything he says, because Jayak will have to take care of a lot of things. Afterward, we see that he suddenly stood up and bowed down to Jayak and says that he will do his best to serve Jayak. Jayak humorously told him that he is overdoing it. Then suddenly he asked Jayak that why did he choose the nightclub business. Jayak was a little surprised by the question and asked him that are there any problems in the nightclub business? And he replied that customers are very limited in the nightclub business, that's why he was asking that. He then further goes on to say that, well, just remodeling would be enough to pull in the customers. We then see Jayak then thinks a little about that, to says that they will have to create word of mouth if they want people to come. Then everyone asked that how they're going to do that. Then Jayak replies that he has his own and a very nice way. Then we see Jayak asking everyone that, which celebrities do they like? Everyone was a little taken back by that question of Jayak. Then we see one of them answers, Leah, because she is a gorgeous and sexy queen. Then Jayak asks him that, what does he think will happen if Leah comes to his neighborhood club? He excitedly replies that he will definitely go to that club right away. Not just only in his neighborhood, he will go right away if she comes to the next neighborhood. Jayak then says that that's the power of celebrities. Then Dwarf asks whether he'll call celebrities in their club. Jayak then says that he knows a person who will do that for them. Jayak then says that there are a set of outfit in his room, so everyone should wear those outfits tomorrow. Jayak then says that the person that they're meeting tomorrow is a scaredy cat, so according to Jayak, if they don't leave a good impression then they might not want to meet them again. Then suddenly one of the friends, who Jayak just made his assistant, said very excitedly that they're going to meet a celebrity. After that, we see that Dwarf asks to Jayak what is the name of the club, because they still have no idea about that. Jayak then said the club's name is JS Club. Dwarf then says cluelessly that JS Club. Jayak then says that the name of the club has an extremely great meaning, and we see him smile. Then we see Jayak reviews that the full form of JS is Ju Kyolsu and calls him a son of a bitch. Then we see the scene changes and Jayak assistant says that the clothes are a bit uncomfortable to him. Jayak asks him why. He then responded by saying that he feels a bit embarrassed wearing them and further asks that, does he have to wear them every day? Jayak then says that a guy like him is asking that type of question to him and told him that it doesn't suit him at all. Then Jayak says that they won't meet them if they go like thugs, so he should stop making these types of excuses and keep following him. He then understands and agrees with him. We then see a skyscraper named Maru. Then we see Jayak and his assistant enter the building. As they enter, the receptionist asks them that how she can help them. Jayak then introduces himself as Yongkwang PD from KBN. Then he further goes on to say that he has a lunch appointment with CEO Han Sang-jun and asks her to guide them to him. The receptionist then said that she understood. Then she said that they will escort them to the CEO's office. Next up, we see that the office people then took them to the CEO's office. They then said that at the CEO's office door that he has a gust. Jayak then thinks that they took them to the CEO's office without checking anything. Jayak then remembers that the security was weak in the past too. He then thought that it's a good thing for him. Jayak then got into the room of the CEO. The CEO then says to Jayak that it's his first time seeing them and asks them that are they the new trainees there? Jayak then savagely responds to the CEO by saying the CEO doesn't know who they're, but first he should greet them properly. Then further goes on to say that what is he doing, smoking idling on the chair, and that he should maintain his manners. The CEO was flabbergasted by hearing that. Jayak then said that he did, although wanted to talk to him quietly. We then see Jayak also ask the CEO to take a seat beside him. The shocked boss then said that it's felt absolute ridiculous to him that a young lead like him is ordering him around in his office. The CEO then asks Jayak, who is he? The boss came close to Jayak and blows smoke in his face, then said to Jayak that he is in front of him now. So he wants Jayak to tell him what does he want. The CEO then further goes on to say that he's rudely ordering someone like him who is older than him, how dare he do that to him, and asks Jayak that blood even flows in Jayak's brain. Then we see that as he completes his sentence, Jayak's assistant grabs the CEO's cigarette and humorously told him that he thinks that the CEO doesn't have any morals according to him. He then further goes on to say that how could he blow his cigarette smoke to someone's face and crush the CEO's cigarette? We then see that the CEO was stunned by that. After that, Jayak then called him CEO Han Sang-jun. Then we see Jayak further go on to say that he is a big shot who have succeeded several girl and boy groups externally. But in reality, he sets his group trainees with rich pimps and also runs 5-room salons. Han Sung-ju then asks Jayak if he's from the police. He then quickly apologized to him because he didn't recognize them. Jayak then responded by saying that he's not from the police. Han Sung-ju then laughed and clapped his hands, then said that if he is not from the police, then why is he acting like one? Then we see the CEO confess to them by saying he did some pimp work and ask what's wrong with that. Then he asks Jayak that if one of the trainees was his girlfriend or something. The CEO then throws a question at Jayak that they all sold their bodies because they wanted to. What does it have to do with him? He then asks Jayak to look at it from another perspective, that it's because of him that they got to meet these rich upper-class men on a regular basis. We then see Jayak is getting a bit angry. Then we see that Jayak is thinking that the CEO is really a moron. Then the CEO said that they shouldn't do this there, and if Jayak has anything against it, then they should do it lawfully. So according to him, Jayak should complain about it to the police. Jayak then surprised him by saying that how will they do it? Lawfully, because the police executives are taking his money to back him up. The CEO was flabbergasted by hearing this. Jayak then further goes on to say that if done it lawfully, then it'll be complicated and that doesn't even suit his style. So Jayak then asks him to grant one of Jayak's favors neatly. Then we see that the CEO says that he doesn't even have the guts to report the matter. The CEO then asks that why does he have to grant Jayak's favor, and he was visibly annoyed. We then see the CEO asks Jayak that does he also want to enjoy with someone too, then asks that does Jayak have money. Then he says that it doesn't seem to him that Jayak has nothing. Then the CEO says that Jayak should stop this type of favor nonsense and leave as soon as possible. We then see that Jayak let his chin down and was visibly pissed at the CEO. After that, Jayak told his assistant, who is also known as Bulk, to hold the CEO's hand. Then Bulk replies yes to Jayak. Later on, Bulk walks towards the CEO and grabbed his hands from behind. On the other hand, Jayak walks towards that showcase, then grabbed one of the trophies and said that Sung Joon hasn't grasped the situation yet. Then we see that Jayak slowly walks towards CEO Han, and Han was stunned. CEO Han that caused Jayak. But Jayak responded by saying that he will solve the matter with his fist and was about to hit. And we see that Jayak was about to hit with the trophy, while CEO Han was scared a lot. Then we see Jayak told CEO that he will crush his bones if he moves. Then the CEO asked Jayak to stop. But we see Jayak swings the trophy towards the CEO's head, and the CEO screams in fear. But Jayak stops right before the trophy could hit his head. Then the CEO says that they should do it with words first and he will do as Jayak says. Jayak responded by saying to him that he should have done that earlier. We then see that Jayak told the CEO to not change mind. The CEO replies to Jayak that he will do anything and asks Jayak to just say anything. Jayak then reveals that what he wants is nothing much and said that he is just opening a club at Cheongdamding. Jayak then asks the CEO to tell his singers and celebrities to come over to Jayak's club. The CEO then asks Jayak if Jayak wants them to perform at his club. Jayak then told the CEO that he just wants them to come over, drink, dance, and enjoy themselves. The boss then says that was that all. Jayak then said that that's what he wants. Then Jayak further goes on to say that he will provide him drinks, a free room if they say that they came at the CEO's recommendation. Then we see that Jayak told the CEO to send lots of them and that it would be better if he sends top-class actors. After hearing all that from Jayak, we see the boss was shocked. He then asks Jayak very timidly that all top-class actors that Jayak wants. And Jayak angrily says that yes, then asks, is it getting too hard for him? Afterward, Sung Joon says that he will tell them all, but he's not sure that whether they will come or not. Jayak then told him that if the celebrities don't want to come, then it will be Sung Joon's responsibility to make sure that does come. Then Jayak further tells him that he knows that Sung Joon does have that connection with them. We then see that the CEO says that the top-class celebrities have very high pride, so he is not sure that whether they would like to come to a place like that. Jayak then told Sung Joon that the Gangbuk SEO chief of crime department, Moon Taegu, and asks him that would he like to eat jail food with this person, who receives pocket money and sex Barbies from him. The boss got scared. Then he told Sung Joon that then he should keep oiling the high pride of those celebs. Then we see a flabbergasted Sung Joon asks Jayak that how did he know about Chief Moon? The Jayak smiles at him and said that did he forget to told him that he knows him really well. We then go to a little flashback where we see that Jayak got to know all that by spying on Han Sang-joon and Chief Moon. And there Jayak finds all that information. Then back at the present times, we see that Jayak saying now that Jayak is assuming that the boss did understand his favor, in which the CEO replies that he does. Afterward, Jayak took the CEO's business card and said that he should provide his business card first to his guests. The Jayak says that he is leaving and orders him to answer his calls. Then he says that JS Club's opening preparations are over and leaves the place. After that, we see the scene changes and we see that it's raining from a conference room window and that there is a meeting going on where many people are sitting and everyone is looking very scared. Then someone calls a guy who is standing at the corner. Then we get to learn that he is President Ju. Afterward, we see that a guy is saying that the President Ju must be having hard times. Then also added that there are only files at their nightclub these days, and that there is no one punching in for work, so we get to learn that they are facing some difficulties. Another guy then said that the same goes with their business because the money spenders aren't spending that much money, and they leave after hanging out for some time. And at the midnight, they don't even see people's shadows. He then explains to President Ju that the old people only eat the basic food and then they leave. So according to that guy, it is getting hard to earn money. Then President Ju then responds to him by saying that he understood the problem and asked those guys to leave for now. But a guy then suddenly says that President Ju should take some action, and further adds that everyone is going to the J's Club. The president then again asks them to leave. After hearing to what President Ju said, that everyone is a bit confused. Afterward, we see that the whole room is empty. Then President Ju calls the head of the department Nam. He responded by saying yes. Then Ju asks him that J's Club and that he wants to know that what is that place. Then we get to see a glimpse of what is happening at the J's Clubs. Then the head of the department Nam says that it's a club which suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and that the DJs in Hongdae have moved there. Also, the famous celebs showed their faces there and they created word of mouth. Then he further goes on to say that the rich people of Gangnam are registered as VIPs there, and they go there regularly. We then see that Ju is a bit shocked because they introduced a VIP system there. Then we see that Ju said that he don't know that who there are, but Ju thinks that they made good use of human psychology of wanting to be treated like VIPs. Then we get to learn that J's Club's owners are also looking for more properties at Gangnam to open more branches from Nam. Ju then thanks that if he leaves J's Clubs, people like this, then it'll affect his rich bowls. After that, we see that Ju asks his head of department Nam that will be the perfect step to protect their bowls. Then he further goes on to say that Nam should think about it simply and he doesn't have to make it difficult. Then Nam replies him that he thinks that they should steal their bowls. Ju then said that Nam is well aware. Then Ju asks Nam that where can he find the bowls. Then he said that it only depends on who eats from them. Then he told Nam to pay them a visit and greet them, then further asks him not to be too rough with them. The scene then changes and we see Jayak and his friends chilling at their restaurant. And suddenly, Nam and his bunch of goons arrive there with bad intentions. Then we see Nam asks that who is the boss of the club. Pig replies that who is he and what is he doing at someone's place of business at such an early hour. Then we see that Jayak thinks that it seems to him that the guys put a gangster's name tag on their forehead. But then he realizes that that's their name tag. After that, Jayak saw that they had a red dragon painted in golden leaf. And then Jayak remembers that this symbolizes Ju Kolsu's subordinate. Later on, Nam says that lowly things should be stepped aside unless they wish to get hurt. Then we see that Pig got angry and yelled at Nam. He said Nam is a son of a bitch. Then we see that Jayak stops Pig. And then Jayak says, J's Club's business hours start from 8 p.m. So he says that they are not ready for business as of then. Then Jayak asks them to leave. Nam then says that did Jayak thought that they came all the way to their club to dance? Then Nam says that Jayak and his friends looks young, and that is Jayak, the boss there. Jayak then relies on that he is the boss. Nam then asks Jayak to get close to him so that they can talk. Jayak then responded to that by saying that the people behind them didn't look like they wanted to talk. Nam then says that they're here to just talk, although he says that he didn't know what will happen if something goes wrong. Then we see that one of the guys came close to Nam and whispered in his ear that it would be better to just beat them all. Nam then responded to him they shouldn't destroy someone else's house and livelihood like that. Nam then said that, can they sit somewhere? Jayak then told Nam that he should talk while standing. Nam then said that Jayak is dropping the honorifics. Jayak then says that, is there any reason to roll his tongue for the guys who aims at their livelihood? Then Nam says that Jayak has some guts. Then we see that he introduces himself that his name is Nam Sangmin, who works under President Ju Kyolsu. The Nam says that Jayak must have heard his name. Jayak then arrogantly said that whose name he's talking about, his or Ju's. Nam then laughs at Jayak and said, that is he kidding? Then we see that Nam suddenly got serious and got close to Jayak, then said that he should stop joking now and listen to him clearly. Nam then further goes on to say that if Ju Kyolsu wouldn't have asked him to do this work quietly, then he would have definitely taught a good lesson to Jayak and that he would have turned Jayak into a meat soup. The Nam said that his president would like to acquire Jayak's place, and that they're giving Jayak the opportunity, so Jayak should take the opportunity and immediately leave. Jayak then looks Nam in his eyes and asks why should he sell a club which is doing well in business. By hearing that, everyone started laughing, especially Nam. Afterward, we see Nam pull a knife from his socks and swing the knife and stop right before the knife touches Jayak's neck. And we see that Jayak's friends were shocked and scared for Jayak. Then we see that Nam asks Jayak that, does it look like he is joking? Nam then says that, since he's talking nicely to Jayak, Jayak seems to take advantage of Nam's niceness. But now he thinks that Jayak is taking a test of his patience. Then Nam says that he is not at all a nice guy. Jayak then says that Nam didn't know that he is way around the knife. But Nam didn't understand what Jayak was saying. Nam then asks Jayak that, did the liver came out of his mouth, because Jayak didn't even look scared. Jayak then says that his liver is on the healthier side. Then Nam says that is Jayak out of his mind or something. Jayak then says that since Nam is the one who first wielded his tool, and we see Jayak slowly pulled a fork from the table that he was standing beside, the Jayak continued by saying that now he can self-defend himself. Nam then asks that what is he doing? Then Jayak puts his fork on Nam's knife and said that knives should be painted with forks. Then Jayak says that they should do it this way. They should fight a match where Nam will fight with his knife and Jayak will fight with at his force. Then we see that Nam says that Jayak is a crazy bastard. Then Jayak proposed that if Nam won the fight, then he can take the club and Jayak won't even ask for money. And Jayak friends were also shocked by what he was saying. Then Jayak also adds that if he won, then Nam will have to pay him the amount that Jayak says and then he can take the club. Then he further adds that if they retreat today, he knows that they'll come back again and make trouble again. Then Jayak suggested that while they are at it, they should decide for sure. Then Jayak asks Nam that what did he think and does Nam want to do it. Then we see that Nam was pretty flabbergasted by that. Then afterward we see that Nam got very angry. And then he says that Jayak shouldn't have done that, because Jayak is going to retreat that decision, and then told him to keep his promise. Then Jayak responded to Nam by saying that there is no taking back from his side. We then see that they are getting ready to have a go at each other, and everyone is looking at them. Nam then took his fighting stance, but we see that Jayak is standing normally like it's nothing. Then we see that Nam's thugs are saying that this turned out pretty easy, and the other one replied that it seems the same to him. After that, we see that Nam said that he is coming to Jayak, and a very confident Jayak told Nam that he can do that anytime he wants and that Jayak is ready. Then we see that Nam is running towards Jayak with his knife, and he swings the knife very fast, but Jayak dodges that pretty easily. Then Nam again tries to stab him with the knife, and this time Jayak again dodge and counter-attacks him with his fork, and Jayak stabs Nam on his thigh. We then see Nam, who is in excruciating pain. Nam then caused at Jayak, and calls Jayak a bastard. Then Nam says that Jayak does play some game. Jayak then responded to that by asking that who's playing games. Then we get to learn that Jayak is trained at CQB, which means close quarters battle. Then we see Nam comes rushing through, and again we see Jayak duck the blow pretty well. And Jayak again stabs Nam with his fork. Then we see Nam gets furious and started abusing Jayak in frustration. Nam then again tries to hit Jayak with his knife, and this time Jayak grabs his hand and stabs him in his thighs. Then we see Nam calls all his guys and then tells them to attack them. Afterward, we see that Nam told his guys to push on Jayak. And on the other hand, Jayak told Bulk to block all the entrances. Then he told Pig to block the stairs. We see that they did as he said. Then we see Jayak then told Dwarf to turn off the lights. The Dwarf did turn off the lights. Then we see that Nam's guys can't see anything. They didn't understand that what's going on. Then we see that Jayak says that people have to separate their friends and enemies to attack. But Jayak now shall he loosen up. We then learn that Jayak's body has been a bit for a long time. Then we see Jayak one by one teaching a lesson to all Nam's guys. And Jayak's friends are also doing the same thing. Then we see that Nam went back to President Ju. Then he explains what happened at Jay's club. Nam then apologizes to the president. Then we see that President Ju then asked him that all the guys that he took with himself are badly injured. Nam then responded to that by saying that they are indeed. The Nam says that he was a bit careless. And then Nam also adds that if he had known that Jayak is trained in martial arts, then he would have dealt with him a bit differently. Then suddenly, President Ju stepped on Nam's wounded feet. Then Ju said that he is making excuses, and Ju lets him know that President Ju doesn't like excuses. Afterward, we see that, scared and hurt, Nam says that he's very sorry for making excuses. Then Ju asks head of department Nam that what did Jayak decide to do. Then we see Nam is in very excruciating pain, because President Ju was staying his wounded leg with his shoe. Then we see that Ju moved his leg from Nam's wounded leg and asks him again that what did Jay's club owner decide to do. This time, Nam replies to him that Jayak decided to sell the club. But in return, Jayak decides on the acquisition fee. Then President Ju wanted to know that, how much does Jayak want? Then Nam very scaredly revealed that Jayak wants 200 billion won for the Jay's club. Then we see the scene changes. Jayak and his friends are having dinner at their house, and they're talking about the club selling matter. We then see Bulk says to Jayak that he is really a generous person, because in his opinion, they poured much time and effort in that place, so they should get at least that much from them. Then Dwarf asks Jayak that will they give them 200 billion? Jayak then responds to him by saying that of course they're not going to do that, because they're not crazy. Dwarf then asks Jayak, then what will they do in Jayak's opinion? Jayak then says that he just gave them a number. Then Jayak explains that originally in trading, people first goes hard in the beginning, then they have to adjust little by little. Then we see Dwarf asks Jayak that what if they decide to harm their business? And then Dwarf further assumes that if they all gather all their members and tries to destroy their business, then what will happen? Jayak then tells him that not to worry because that won't happen. Jayak then tells them that from now on, the Gangbuk police will be on patrol surrounding the club. They then ask Jayak that why would Gangbuk police come here because this is Gangnam. Then we see Jayak explains to them that Gangnam police is in cahoots with Ju Kyolsu, and even if a gang fight occurs in front of their eyes, they will just walk by it if they are told that it's related to Ju Kyolsu. Then Pig asks Jayak that aren't the police assigned jurisdictions, so in that case that won't work then. Jayak then told him that on this matter he has his own way. We then see a little falseback where Jayak called Chief Moon Daegyu and told him that Jayak has heard of things from CEO Han Sang-jun that Chief is having a great time because he's having pocket money from Han every month, and also he's spending his night with trainees, and told him that he is a very busy man these days. Then we see that Chief Moon asks him that is he the one who has sent these photos to him? Then Chief Moon further asks him that who is he and what does he want from him? Then we see that Jayak told him that since he's asked that talk will be brief. Then Jayak told Chief Moon that he just has to do his duty as a police officer. Chief then reacts to that by saying what? Then we see that Jayak told him that what he meant was that a good citizen has become a target of gangsters, and that what is going on with that. So Jayak wants Chief Moon to protect him from those gangsters. Then back to the present day, we see Jayak told his friends that if the gangs didn't go insane, there would be no incident where the gangs of Gangnam will go reckless. And then Jayak said that the department head Nam will come again, and then Jayak asks his friends to be polite with him and told them that they should greet him properly. Jayak friends then respond to that by saying that they will do as Jayak wants. Then we see that Jayak is thinking that while Jayak is at that, Jayak think that he would like to get all the 200 billion won. It's Jayak greed, but he thinks that it would just be enough. And then Jayak further thinks that he will rip them off just enough to slow down the gang war in Gangbuk. Then we get to know that these are all parts of his plan. The scene changes and we can see a restaurant named Suwon King Ribs. Jayak then look at the restaurant name board and thinks that this restaurant is pretty famous. Then he further thinks that this who is here to meet up with might be the owner's son. Afterward, we see that Jayak enters the restaurant and the guy behind the counter asks Jayak that how many people, then he looks at his computer, then finds an appointment for Lee Jayak. Then we see that Jayak says that he wants to talk with that guy. Then we get to know that this guy is Instructor Rashim, who's also known as Tiger Instructor. Then we get to learn that this Gyu is the person who taught fighting skills to Lee Jurayok during his Hid days. After that, we see Jayak is waiting for that guy. Then Instructor Rashim also, he brought coffee for Jayak and himself. Jayak then thanked him for the coffee. We get to learn that Rashim didn't expect that Jayak would visit him first. Jayak then asked him that what does he mean by that? Then Rashim said that he was pretty cruel and harsh when he was teaching Jayak. Then Rashim said in a joking way that there are maybe a lot of people who are mad at him and wants to take revenge on him. He then further goes on to say that he thought that there would be a few people who could come to visit after he was discharged, but he is totally surprised to see Jayak. Then we see that Rashim asks Jayak that does he want to fight him now or Jayak would want to do it sometimes later. Then Jayak tells him to take a sit with him and assures him that he is not there to fight him. Then a flabbergasted Rashim asks Jayak that why is he here then? Then we see that Jayak said that he saw Rashim's feet are relaxed and then told him that they can sit and have a chat. But we see that Rashim was shocked that Jayak was not there to fight him. He then still confirmed that. Jayak again told him that he is not there to fight. Jayak then asks him that why would he wants to fight him. Jayak then says that he mastered interpersonal fighting from him and he is thankful to him. Rashim then said that he actually does teach a good punching technique. We then see Jayak said that has he been working here? Rashim then replies to that by saying he was working there since he got discharged. Then Jayak thinks that now Instructor Tiger is now helping his family by working here. Then we see that Jayak said that he wants to make an offer to Rashim. Rashim then asks him what kind of offer he wants to make. Jayak then smiles at Rashim. Then Jayak says that he wants to work together with Rashim. Then we see that the conversation continues and we see that Jayak asks Rashim what he thinks about this proposal. Then Rashim replies to him by saying that what type of work is he talking about. Jayak then says that he's thinking about starting a bodyguard company. Rashim then was a bit flabbergasted by hearing that. Then Rashim then explains to Jayak that guarding and managing are two completely different things. Then he also adds that these type of companies works when they have work and when there is no work, they'll be dead. Then Rashim says that some of Jayak's seniors also tried the bodyguard business, and he said that they have become delinquent borrowers. Then he further says that escorting celebs when the runs events doesn't pay well at all. Jayak then told him that he's going to start a security company, and that's why he is starting with a bodyguard company. Then Rashim yells at Jayak and said that if he's even listening to Rashim. Jayak then also says that he just looked for a place to use as his office in Yongsan. Then he further goes on to say that he's going to operate the company under the name of SA Security, and the CEO will be a professional manager. And he will also create a department which will be totally separated, and that it will be for general affairs and human resource support. Then we see Jayak asks Rashim to become the department head of his security company. Rashim then gets a little excited. Then we see him regain his composure and said that Jayak really looked like he's going to start something big. The Rashim said that Jayak shouldn't do it because he will end up with a basket and will start begging. We then see that Jayak gives Rashim an envelope. Rashim then asks Jayak that what is in there. Jayak then responds to him by saying that there is 100 million in there. Then Jayak said that he can't take someone like him for free. Then he said that there is also his business card in there, so he should think it over and then he should give Jayak a call. Then we see Rashim suddenly grabs Jayak's hand and asks Jayak to be honest with him. Jayak then asks him about what he wants him to be honest about. The Rashim said that if Jayak is the winner of last week's 2 lottery winner. Jayak then said that Rashim then can look at it that way. And then he thinks that he was not being completely wrong though, because he is planning to get at least 10 times that amount of money from Ju Kyolsu. Then we see that the scene changes and inside the J's Club, head of department Nam is talking to Jayak. Then we see is cracking jokes with Nam when we see Jayak saying that Nam's face looked injured to Jayak. Then we see head of department Nam said that Jayak should stop this type of nonsense talk. And we see that Nam wants to talk about some business with Jayak. Jayak then agrees with that. Then he asks Bulk to bring some coffee and fruit for them. Then we see that Jayak and Nam is sitting at table and Bulk brought some coffee and fruits for them. Nam then saw that Bulk also brought some forks to eat the fruits. Then we see that Jayak said that forks are very useful and then further goes on to say that anybody can stab anything with forks and then eat them. Jayak then asks Nam that did he prepare the 200 billions? Nam then gets nervous, then said that the amount Jayak wants is way too much. Then said that he wants to negotiate with Jayak. Jayak then replies Nam by saying that he doesn't think that it's a big amount. Then Jayak said that he had also planned a second club at Apgujeong and the third in Gangnam Station. And then Jayak said that he is not selling the Cheongdam-dong club. In fact, he is selling all the 3 clubs at once. Then he said that shouldn't he be getting at least 200 billion? Then we see Jayak thinks in his heat that he hasn't made the other 2 clubs yet, but in his opinion, this is called the creative economy. Then Nam said that still 200 billion is too much to handle for them. Then asks Jayak that can he adjust this amount a little bit? Then Jayak asks him how much he wants Jayak to adjust, in which Nam said around 50 billion. Then we see that Jayak suddenly asks the head of department Nam to leave the place. Then a stunned Nam asks Jayak that what did he just say? And then we see that Jayak again told the head of department Nam to leave. Then we see that the head of department of Mr. Ju's company, Nam, was very shocked.